Before he became the richest man in the world, before his name echoed through courtrooms, boardrooms, and history books, he was just a boy, a quiet, serious boy walking down the dusty back roads of upstate New York. No inheritance, no powerful connections, no lucky break. What he did have was control. Control over his time, control over his emotions, control over his mind. While other boys played, he calculated. While others complained, he worked. While others rushed, he wrote everything down. Every penny, every habit, every thought. He didn't wait for the world to change. He reprogrammed himself to change the world. This is the story of how John D. Rockefeller built a mind so steady, so ruthless, so unshakable, that it conquered chaos, outlasted enemies, and reshaped capitalism itself. Not by noise, but by silence. Not by luck, but by structure. Not by being born great, but by becoming it. Let's begin. Let me take you back. A boy's walking down the dirt roads of Richford, New York. He's poor. His clothes are plain. His family moves a lot. But behind his calm eyes, something is forming. A powerful mind trained not by teachers, but by struggle. This boy is John D. Rockefeller. From the beginning, life trained him to be silent, to observe, to listen before he acted. His father, Big Bill Rockefeller, was a con man, a flashy, bold, bragging trickster who was rarely around. But instead of copying his father, young John went the opposite direction. He learned to hide his thoughts. He watched people closely, and he began building a mind that could not be shaken. He once wrote in a school essay, "I do not think money makes happiness." This from the man who would one day control more money than anyone in the world. But how? The secret began with control. Even as a young man, he wrote everything down. Every penny he earned, every cent he spent. He didn't trust memory. He didn't leave things to emotion. He kept a ledger. His mind was being trained like a machine. Precise, calm, deliberate. At 16, he got his first job. He was a bookkeeper. While other boys were dreaming of adventure or gambling in the streets, John worked 12 hours a day for 50 cents. And then he walked miles back home. He called it the day of days when he got that job. He celebrated it every year like a personal holiday. Why? Because it meant freedom through discipline. He wasn't just working for money. He was working to reprogram who he was. He once said, "Work is the greatest gift I ever had." Most people run from work. John embraced it. He didn't start rich. He didn't start with connections. But he had something better, a mindset formed by hardship, shaped by routine, and powered by patience. That's where his greatness began. He wasn't chasing success. He was becoming the kind of man who success would chase. John D. Rockefeller never guessed. He calculated. From the moment he earned his first dollar, he acted like he was managing a fortune. He saved ruthlessly. He lived below his means. While others rushed to spend, he slowed down to think. He studied numbers like a surgeon studies anatomy. And slowly he began to understand something most people never learn. The world rewards the man who knows where his money is going before he spends it. He once loaned a farmer $50 at 7% interest. He was still a teenager. That $50 was huge for him. But he didn't just give the loan and forget it. He recorded it, calculated it, tracked the interest, watched every dollar grow like a farmer watching crops. That was the beginning of his investor's mind. He didn't think short-term. He was always asking, what will this look like in 5 years? Is this cost creating value or just comfort? Will this help me grow or distract me? That's how he reprogrammed his instincts. He trained himself to feel pleasure in saving and discomfort in wasting. He trained himself to ask what something is worth, not what it costs. And above all, he built a habit of seeing everything as a business. His time, his energy, his choices. Later he would write, "Save when you can and not when you have to." This was the Rockefeller system. He wasn't just building wealth. He was building a way of thinking, a system of emotional control over money, no panic, no hurry, no impulse, just quiet, methodical strength. That's what made him dangerous in the best way. Others played the game with emotion. He played it with strategy. There was something eerie about John D. Rockefeller in the boardroom. He didn't yell. He didn't argue. He didn't rush. He just sat there, silent, calm, watching. That silence broke strong men, partners, rivals, even family. Because Rockefeller's stillness wasn't passive. It was powerful. Behind those quiet eyes was a mind running full speed, calculating every word, every reaction, every signal. People called him cold, but he wasn't cold. He was in control. And that control wasn't natural. It was earned. He had trained himself to master his emotions. In a time when business was wild and violent and unpredictable, Rockefeller was steady as stone. He once said, "I always tried to turn every disaster into an opportunity." Think about that. Most men panic when things go wrong. Rockefeller paused, breathed, reframed the situation. While others were burning with emotion, he was busy adjusting strategy. This was his secret weapon, stillness under pressure. Even during market crashes when men were throwing themselves off buildings, Rockefeller would sit at his desk, reread his numbers, and make calm decisions. Not because he didn't feel fear, but because he didn't let fear lead him. He rewired his mind to ask, what's the opportunity here? What's real versus what's noise? How do I respond, not react? This made him unbeatable. He was a fortress, not loud, not flashy, but unshakable. If you want to be unstoppable, it starts with this. Be the calmest man in the room. Not because life is calm, but because you are. Most people treat money emotionally. Rockefeller treated it like a soldier. He didn't waste. Ever. Even when Standard Oil was making millions, he watched every expense like it was his first dollar. His factories reused barrels, captured excess gas, even recycled metal shavings. If something could be saved or sold, it was. He once said, "We can afford to lose money, even a lot of money, but we cannot afford to lose a reputation or to waste." This wasn't about greed. It was about respect for efficiency. Rockefeller saw waste as weakness, sloppy thinking, laziness in disguise. But here's the twist. While he was ruthless about cutting waste, he was bold when it came to growing opportunity. When he saw a chance to expand, he didn't hesitate. He borrowed, he bought, he bet big, but only when the numbers made sense. His rule was simple. Don't cut the future, cut the fat. At one point, he personally reviewed the price of every item used in his refineries, down to the nails in the crates. This wasn't obsession, it was discipline, because the man who understands the details can control the direction. And when he saved a few cents on each barrel of oil, that turned into millions across thousands of barrels. Small efficiencies built a giant. This is how he reprogrammed his mind, to spot patterns others ignored, to master the boring stuff, to see that small savings multiplied create unstoppable force. The average man says, "It's just a small waste." The Rockefeller mind says, "No, this is a leak in my empire. Be frugal with what drains you. Be fearless with what grows you." John D. Rockefeller didn't need to talk to feel powerful. In fact, he believed that the more silent you are, the more you control the room. Even in the most high-pressure negotiations, he spoke softly, if at all. He didn't feel the need to explain himself. He didn't interrupt. He let others talk themselves into deals, because in silence, men reveal their hands. He once said, "I always tried to listen twice as much as I talked." That was no accident. It was a practice, a weapon. Rockefeller's competitors hated this. They called him a mystery. Some said he had no soul, but he wasn't hiding. He was watching. He trained himself to value privacy, not popularity, to seek clarity, not crowds. He didn't chase fame. He avoided interviews. He barely let newspapers photograph him. His life was his own, because his mind was his own. And this gave him power most men never know. Power to think independently. Power to decide without influence. Power to act without begging for permission. He once compared himself to Napoleon, not for his conquest, but for his solitude. He understood that building an empire requires you to stand alone before others believe in you. In the quiet, he refined his thoughts. In the dark, he prepared his moves. This wasn't shyness. This was strategy. If you want a mind like Rockefeller's, you need to learn this. Silence isn't weakness. It's how kings hear their own voice. John D. Rockefeller didn't want to be rich for a day. He wanted to build something that would last 100 years, so he created a system. Most men hustle randomly. They chase one deal, one opportunity, one lucky break. Rockefeller didn't chase. He constructed. Standard Oil wasn't just a business, it was an engine. Every piece, refining, shipping, marketing, pipelines, rail deals, was part of the machine. He said, the ability to deal with people is as purchasable a commodity as sugar or coffee, and I pay more for that ability than for any other under the sun. That's how he thought. In systems, in leverage, in scale. He didn't just ask, what can I earn today? He asked, how can I make this system earn for me every day, even when I'm not there? He bought out partners. He created secret deals with railroads. He eliminated middlemen. He standardized pricing. He built trust with banks. And most of all, he made sure every drop of oil earned more than the last. While his rivals were fighting over scraps, Rockefeller was building pipelines. While others tried to sell barrels, he owned the barrel makers. That's the mindset difference. Don't just do work. Build a system that works for you. Every decision he made added a gear to the machine, and then he let it run. Even when rivals attacked him in court, even when journalists called him a villain, he stayed calm. Because he didn't need approval, he had built something too strong to stop. That's how he reprogrammed his mind. Stop thinking in events. Start thinking in systems. Stop focusing on wins. Start focusing on structures. Legacy isn't built by flashes of brilliance. It's built by boring, repeatable, unstoppable machines. What gave Rockefeller his unbreakable calm? Not just money, not power, but something deeper, faith. John D. Rockefeller was a devout Baptist. He tithed 10% of every dollar he made, even as a poor boy. He believed God rewarded discipline, hard work, and moral restraint. But this wasn't some passive Sunday ritual. It was the foundation of his mental toughness. His faith gave him rules to live by, anchors for his mind. Don't lie, don't panic, don't be wasteful. Stay humble before God, no matter how rich you get. That last one mattered, because Rockefeller was rich beyond comprehension, but he always carried a kind of spiritual seriousness. He believed that money was a trust, not a trophy. He once said, "The good Lord gave me the money." Now, you might not be religious, but don't miss the lesson. Rockefeller's belief system made him strong. It gave him peace when things went wrong. It gave him a reason to be generous when others were greedy, and it gave him purpose when others burned out. When journalists attacked him, when competitors sued him, when his own son disappointed him, he didn't collapse because he wasn't standing on emotion. He was standing on principle. He lived by a strict moral code, and that gave his mind a rare kind of order, emotional clarity in chaos. You don't have to follow his religion, but if you want to reprogram your mind like he did, you need your own code, rules you won't break, values you won't trade, beliefs that anchor you when life shakes you. Because when your inner world is strong, the outside world can't break you. Rockefeller had a secret most men never learn. He didn't show power, he stored it. When people mocked him, he stayed quiet. When rivals overreached, he waited. When opportunities appeared, he acted, but only when the odds were perfect. He didn't waste energy proving he was strong. He saved that energy to strike with precision. This is called delayed power, and it made him invincible. There's a story from his early oil days. Competitors were slashing prices in a war to the death. While others panicked, Rockefeller smiled. He let them bleed. He watched as they burned through cash, broke contracts, lost focus. Then, when the moment was right, he offered to buy them out. Cheap. He said, the ability to keep calm in troubled times is one of the marks of a great man. This wasn't luck. This was mental conservation. He didn't overreact. He conserved resources, words, emotions, and time. Like a great general, he knew when to hold back and when to unleash everything. It was the opposite of ego. Ego wants to be seen. Rockefeller wanted leverage. That's why people feared him. Not because he was loud, but because he was quiet and always 3 steps ahead. He once told his son, "Always let your actions do your boasting for you." That's the mindset. Train in silence, grow in secret. Then, when the time comes, move like a storm. That's how he reprogrammed his instincts. Don't fight for attention. Fight for advantage. Don't react emotionally. Wait, then overwhelm. Don't exhaust yourself proving power. Preserve it until it's undeniable. True power isn't what you show, it's what you control, and when you use it. Rockefeller was a titan in business. But raising a son? That tested his deepest beliefs. His letters to his son, John Jr., reveal a man who saw fatherhood as more than love. It was a mission to transfer a mindset. He didn't spoil his son. He trained him. He wrote things like, "Go steadily ahead and do your duty and leave the results to God." Simple, steady, demanding. He wasn't soft. He wanted Junior to feel pressure, to carry responsibility, but not for vanity, for purpose. He taught him, give before you take, observe more than you speak, be useful, not flashy. Every letter was a test. Could Junior develop Rockefeller's patience, his order, his mental discipline? But here's the twist. While Rockefeller trained his mind for business, Junior trained his heart for giving. And eventually it was Junior who led the family's rise into philanthropy on a global scale. It didn't weaken the Rockefeller legacy. It expanded it. Rockefeller once said, "It is more difficult to give money away intelligently than to earn it in the first place." So he passed on not just wealth, but a blueprint. Work, save, build, to give. He didn't want his son to chase wealth. He wanted him to become worthy of it. That's the real test of legacy. Can you pass on not just money, but mindset? Rockefeller reprogrammed his own mind through discipline. Then he used that same discipline to shape the next generation. Success isn't just what you build, it's what you leave behind. Late in life, Rockefeller's face appeared in cartoons as a snake, an octopus, a demon clutching the world. He was accused of crushing rivals, controlling the government, and hoarding wealth. The press hated him. The people feared him, and yet he didn't flinch. Because John D. Rockefeller had spent his whole life investing in something bigger than oil, his name. He once said, "A man has no right to occupy another man's time unnecessarily." That's not just manners. That's philosophy. Every action, every word, every silence was calculated to protect something priceless, his personal reputation. Behind the scenes, he gave away hundreds of millions to schools, to science, to medicine. He funded cures for diseases no one else even studied. But he did it quietly, no press tours, no applause. Why? Because he knew your real image is not what you post, it's what you practice. Even when accused of ruthless tactics, Rockefeller stayed consistent. He didn't swing back. He didn't explain himself to the public. He lived his principles in silence. And over time, people noticed. He lived long enough to see the headlines change, from tyrant to builder, from hoarder to healer. By the end of his life, they weren't calling him greedy. They were calling him the greatest philanthropist the world had ever seen. That didn't happen by accident. It happened because he built a mind that could endure misunderstanding without crumbling. He wasn't swayed by gossip. He was grounded by values. He didn't chase approval. He invested in character and let history catch up. Your reputation is your shadow. It follows everything you do. But if you build it right, it outlives you. John D. Rockefeller lived to 97, almost a century of strategy, work, and self-discipline. But the last transformation of his mind wasn't about control, it was about release. In his final years, he began to let go of business, of competition, even of pride. The man who once monitored every penny now gave away his fortune by the millions, and not emotionally, but with the same precision that made him rich. He created foundations, endowed universities, funded medical breakthroughs, built institutions that would outlive him by centuries. He said, "I believe the power to make money is a gift from God, to be developed and used for the good of mankind." That wasn't charity, that was clarity. Rockefeller had conquered the outer world, but his final act was to conquer the inner one. He began spending more time in nature, playing golf, talking with close friends, teaching his grandsons, laughing, smiling, writing gentle letters filled with encouragement. He had nothing left to prove, but everything left to give. This was the last reprogramming of his mind, from builder to giver, from strategist to steward, from empire to legacy. He didn't slow down because he was tired. He slowed down because he was done fighting. His work was complete, his name secure, his impact locked into the bones of America. In the end, he didn't want to be remembered as the richest man in the world. He wanted to be remembered as a man who lived with purpose, discipline, and a deep, unshakable belief that success, real success, is not what you keep. It's what you leave behind. What if you could reprogram your mind like John D. Rockefeller? What if instead of chasing dopamine, you chased discipline? What if you didn't react, but responded? What if your silence scared people because it meant you were thinking deeper than they were shouting? Rockefeller didn't have superpowers. He had something better, a quiet start, a clear philosophy, and a system that made his mind sharper every year. Rockefeller's mind wasn't just great, it was trained, and you can train yours too. Not to copy him, but to become your own kind of dangerous, your own kind of still, your own kind of free, because history doesn't belong to those with the loudest mouths. It belongs to those who master themselves first and shape the world second. Your mind is clay, start shaping. Your name is a seed, start planting. Your time is now, start reprogramming. You've seen inside the mind of one of history's sharpest operators. Which quote will you live by this week? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more lessons like this, subscribe, share the video, and step forward into history's playbook. The past doesn't repeat itself, but it does leave clues. There's more stories like this, more minds shaped by fire, more lives built not on luck, but on systems, struggle, and strategy. If you're ready to go deeper into another life that rewired the world one disciplined decision at a time, this next video might just be the one you need to see next. It's waiting for you.